Namaste. I would like to read two stanzas from the Gita, the 5th chapter, stanza 13 and 14. When once the embodied soul has controlled the senses and mentally releasing every attachment to activity, remains blissful and secure in the city of 9 gates. The city of 9 gates is the 9 gates of the eyes, the nostrils, 2 nostrils, the mouth, the anus, the sexual organs, and have I got it all? Anyway, that's what it's about. He himself no longer acts, nor does he impose action on other people or on his own, on his outer senses. It is not God, the sovereign self, who creates in mankind the consciousness of acting in this world. God neither causes people to act, nor entangles them in the karmic consequences of their actions. It is Maya, the cosmic illusion, which acts through them. Now what are we saying here? God as Brahman is without any movement at all. And as he decides to manifest himself in creation, he creates the wind of Maya. And this is not he doing it, it's something going over the surface of his consciousness, producing these waves. Now that movement of energy moving outward from God, that is not his will. That is it's a conscious creation. Om is consciousness. These waves are consciousness. The storm that creates these waves is consciousness. That's the consciousness is an aspect of Brahman, but it is not Brahman. Brahman is that who just observes from afar. And Brahman also observes from the center of everything, and that is the Kutastha Chaitanya. And the action itself is that movement of Maya. Well, it isn't God who forces you to do these things, and so it would be good to understand that that action comes from the force of Maya. Now, there's a very interesting aspect of this, and that is that there are beings in this universe, in the astral universe, who actually try to enter into your mind and cause you to be that. Outside of bars and places where people are drinking or gambling and so on, there are actual beings who sort of feed on that energy, and you must protect yourself from those things. When I was new on the path, it was very, for me, totally unexpected truths that I would hear these things that I didn't know anything about. Always I would ask this question: did Master say that? If they didn't say that, because they'd done a lot of reading in a hodgepodge of literature and metaphysical readings and so on. But if Master had said it, then fine. When somebody said that there are beings on the sun, even whose bodies are gaseous, I said, did Master say that? And if in this case they said yes, I said, okay, I accept it. But my pole star was he. If he said it, yes. If he didn't say it, I couldn't accept it. But in this case, there was some very peculiar thing that I'd never even thought of before. In the New Testament, in the Bible, we have several cases where Jesus freed people from a possession. Now, in our modern age, we don't think of possession at all. We think that people do it from themselves. But you know, many murders, many crimes, many things that people do that are wrong are actually cases of possession. Their wills are weak, and in that weak will, the astral entity can come in. This is why, when Master talked of going into the thoughtless state, Teresa of Avila said that on the 4th state of meditation, of prayer, you reach the point where your mind is held firm. You can't think. Well, this is not the state that I'm talking about. It's not a passive state. It's very, very positive. The cup is turned up toward the infinite. It's receiving, but it's receiving on such a level that there are no more restless thoughts. There's just perception. Well, in a blank state, as opposed to that higher state, and this is the trouble with mediumship. Many times a medium will open himself or herself to these entities, and sometimes these entities are dark entities. And sometimes, even if they're not dark entities, they will use the medium's nervous system in order to express itself outwardly. Well, those vibrations that are different from the complex pattern of the individual medium's own personality and so on, when these other things become imposed on him, some trace of those things are left. And the medium often will become quite neurotic after some years. That doesn't have to be. There can be levels of having that perception from a superconscious level. But if it's subconscious, it's not good. So always keep yourself surrounded by good vibrations. Understand that when the mind becomes passive, when you're drinking, your mind becomes passive. It becomes sort of dull. That is when these entities can come in. And many wrong things that people have done, later they said, I don't know, I don't remember killing him. They don't remember. They didn't even do it. It was this astral entity. And remember, those entities that are likely to come to you are those entities that are living close to this sphere. They're very conscious of the world. If you could see the world as it is, with all the ghosts and so on walking around you, you might be quite frightened. But there are also higher entities that come. I remember after a Christmas meditation at Mount Washington with our guru, he said afterwards, thousands of angels passed through the room today. Well, turn your mind up to them and they will be able to help you. But these visions of angels and so on, the visions of Medjugorje, the visions in Portugal, at Fatima, the visions at Lourdes, and the countless visions that people have here. But of course I come from another tradition, and so it's easier for me to talk from my tradition. But these are realities, and there are beings looking at your thoughts, and every time you have a good thought, some better quality can come into your consciousness. And when you have a bad thought, don't say it's all in the mind. That's just where it is. It's the only reality you have is what's in your mind. And if you live in a negative way, you will draw negative influences. Yogananda said one time, I myself suffer when I see when you have moods, because I see that then Satan has a hold of you. When you allow your mind to go down, that's the level of consciousness from which thoughts come to you, inspirations come to you, and so on. And so, even against your will, this is a question that Arjuna is asking, and Krishna answers him that it is the tendencies and so on of the past that make you do these things against your will. But there's more to it than that. When you do these things, when you have those low thoughts, you're also attracting low entities, and they push you toward darkness. And if you allow those thoughts to dwell, they too create a kind of magnetism that attracts that. And you will find yourself becoming darker and darker in your understanding. The beautiful thing is that nobody is really evil, even though he acts evil. And I seriously question whether anybody ever would say, I am evil. Somehow we know that we have a higher potential. But it depends on the level of our consciousness. And that level is also in the spine. And when the level is low, then that's the kind of thought we bring into ourselves. When we can raise that level, I remember when I was new on the path, I fell into a mood. And I couldn't get myself out of that mood by reasoning about it. I had all sorts of reasons, none of them worked because my reason was following my feeling. And so finally I decided to sit in meditation and concentrate here at the point between the eyebrows, raising my consciousness. 5 minutes was all it took. After 5 minutes, I felt so lifted in my consciousness, suddenly new thoughts came to me, and I saw all the reasons why I should feel that way. This is why I also say, don't trust your reason. It's a tricky instrument. It can slice the boil of ignorance, or it can decapitate you. Always remember, you must be guided also by the feelings in your heart. And so anyway, as you raise your consciousness, you will find that then the angels can inspire you. Many great inventions that have come in science, for example, have come because some deity placed that thought in the person's mind. Einstein, as I've said before, He had the inspiration for the law of relativity just in a flash like that. It was given to him. It was time for man to understand it. And these angels are looking for instruments to give these inspirations to them. You're not working alone in this world. There are subtle forces that are helping you and other forces that are fighting that help. Some trying to bring you up, some trying to bring you down. But Einstein, after that inspiration, had to spend 10 years working it out logically so that he could express his teachings to other people. And even then it was said that of all the scientists in the world, only 10 really understood him. Well, the more you can raise your consciousness, don't think you have to reason it all out. The more you can raise your consciousness, the more the inspiration can come in. But the difference between the angels and these low entities is these angels want to inspire you. They don't want to possess you. And the lower creatures, they belong to this world. They have attachment to this world. And they're looking for open vehicles through which they can function. And really blanking your mind out is like leaving your car parked by the roadside, by the curb, and with the key inside and the door unlocked. Who's going to get into that car and drive it away? A thief, not an honest man. And so the people who will take advantage of those who are in such a state will be always lower entities, not higher ones. Possession is something to protect yourself from. How can you do it? How can you do it if you are bothered by these entities? Because they can also be karmic influences. If you had that weakness in the past, it can come now in this life too. Well, a simple technique is to stand up beside your bed before you go to bed at night and join the tips of your fingers, join the hands together in front and then behind your back, and sort of weave a circle of light 3 times around your body, saying Om Tat Sat. And as you do so, feel that you're bringing light and surrounding yourself in this light, Om Tat Sat. And then when you lie on your bed, write on your pillow with your finger 3 times, Om, and go to bed, go to sleep in the thought of God's protection. But another thing will help you very much, to bring your consciousness here, to harmonize the vibrations in your heart. Send out harmonious vibrations in all directions. When you're in a giving mode, then these things can't come. It's when you're in a taking mode, an absorbing mode, that they can come. So think also in terms of what you can give. This is the right direction for the ego's development too. As I said before, if you're a wealthy man, give things to others, give money to others, help other people. This is the way to balance that karma and turn it in a positive direction. So this possession thing, when I was new on the path, I was very puzzled by it. It seemed like such a sort of far out idea. And I began to think, well, I'd like to know what it's all about. Anyway, I had enough of that thought for one evening, and one night while I was asleep, I had this dream. And I can see it clearly now after 60 years that I was at a party and there were all these people talking and so on. And then I suddenly thought, it's time for me to go and meet a disincarnate entity. And so I left the room, went into another room that was completely empty. I still remember the floorboards there, dark window, darkness outside. And I stood in the middle of the room and I said, come on, I want to find out what this is all about. If you exist, come here. Try to get into me. Well, all of a sudden, I had put my mind in attunement with that thought of being possessed. And suddenly the boards began to rise and fall like waves on an ocean. I found myself being sucked out the window. And I heard this sound of Om that was from a low astral plane. It wasn't a beautiful Om, but it was the vibration of that level. And vibrations are much stronger in the astral world. Like this woman who tried to commit suicide and went to the astral world, but she had a near-death experience. She was saved from that. But she noticed later, she remembered later that the vibration of that had been very much like rock and roll music, heavy pounding and so on. The music you listen to it has a very definite effect on your consciousness. Beware of that. So anyway, I heard this too, and then suddenly I found that there was some force trying to take over my consciousness. And I fought back, and I wasn't sure whether I'd have the strength to fight it. But I thought, well, I'm a disciple of a great guru. So I said, Master! Suddenly it all disappeared. I woke up in bed. I felt free. But I knew it was a true experience, and I asked him about it later. And he said, yes, these things do happen. So don't invite them. Understand that you must have that level of consciousness where you work with your senses, not with the body, as I said yesterday. And the more you have that consciousness attached to the fruits of action, there lies bondage. He lives in bondage. But if you can relinquish attachment, say that nothing is really mine, it's all his. Don't feel that you are involved in this great stewing cauldron, you might say, of Maya. Then you find that nothing can touch you. Always feel that you have God by the hand. Always feel that you're surrounded by His light. Always chant to Him in your mind. I have suggested Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram Om. Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram Om. Or Mahamantra is a beautiful mantra. Some kind of song that inspires you. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And the beauty of that melody and the beauty of the words, it will eat into your being. And the more you have that vibration of God in you, the less any negative or worldly vibration can touch you. So don't just think God. Have clear visualizations, and more you will find yourself soaring in His bliss. Joy to you.